Do not underestimate the power of good lighting. It's all of the basics that come together about art that really builds up a piece and makes it look perfect. So the basics like highlights and shadows and light sources are simple, but they're really going to take you a long way. So let's start off by looking at these objects on the table here. Right now they're just sitting with no direct light on them, just general lighting in the room and daylight. So it looks kind of flat, there's no shadows being cast, it just looks pretty average. And now as I add a light source directly shining on it, it's going to cast some shadows and change the overall appearance. This is important because whenever we draw something, whether from a reference photo or live in person, there will always be some sort of a light source that affects the highlights and shadows. So as I move the light source from left to right, you can see how the shadows change and the shapes change as well. Depending on how the objects are positioned, it can make the whole appearance look better or worse. If I were to use this as a reference image, I would want to stop it at a place that I think the shadows look nice, as well as the objects. So the light source needs to be put in a specific place where both of them look the best. Let's take a look at a few reference photos now. Looking at these different images of peonies, some would make better reference images than others. The one at the top here is a bad reference photo because the lighting is cast in a way that most of the peony is in the shadows. So it wouldn't really make sense to use this as a reference photo because the most detailed part is hidden in the shadows. It's really not that great to see all the details. It just looks kind of overcast and not that good. The only time this would really work as a reference image is if you wanted the peonies to be somewhere in a composition that they're kind of hidden in shadows. So if it would make sense that they are in the shadow, that's great. Otherwise, I really would never use this as a reference image. Now looking at the other two images of peonies, these are much better to use as reference images. The first photo is lit from the top, so it has very bright direct light shining down on the petals. This makes all the details come to life and it looks very vibrant and as if it's opening right in front of your eyes. Also for the second reference image, it's being lit kind of from the top left. So the left side of the peony is more bright and you can see more details on the left side compared to the right. But still everything is in focus, you can see all the details, nothing is underlit, and overall it would be a good image to use as a reference image. So if you were to pick between these two reference images, the main thing that I would choose from is where I want the light source to be coming from. Do I want the light source coming directly down from the top, or do I want it to be coming from the top side? If I want it to be coming from the left or the right, that doesn't really matter, because you can always mirror image the photo. But it matters that it's going to be coming from the top side as compared to coming from below or the top. These are just some things to keep in mind as you're creating composition and making sure that the light source always matches with everything else. So now let's take a look at if we were to take multiple images and put them together to create one composition. It's important that the light source is coming from the same direction in every photo. That way the overall composition has the same lighting and it feels like it was all taken together at once, and not like it's just pieced together. For example, here with the fruit, the top one is good composition because the shadows and the highlights all look like they come from the same light source. It looks natural, like the fruit was taken in one photo together. But at the bottom, it's bad composition because the shadows are cast differently for each type of fruit. For the avocado, it looks like it's on a completely different level as well, and that's because of the way the shadows are being cast. It overall just doesn't make sense to put them like this, and some of the images need to be mirrored so that the shadows are going in the right way. Another trick that I use sometimes when I'm trying to figure out where a light source is coming from, I'll draw arrows where I think the light source comes from, all the way through the object down past where it's casting shadows. This is just a simple trick to kind of get an idea of where the light should be shining. And then I'll make sure that everything matches up for every object or every piece of the composition. Also circling the highlights to make sure that they're all kind of pointed in the same direction. This means that the highlights are all being created from the light source and that the light source is hitting every object kind of in the same place. Like how you can see that this one singular photo of the fruit at the bottom, it all has the same spotlights on the highlights and the shadows are all cast in the same general kind of way. But with the avocado, it's a little bit more difficult to tell. You can only see the shadows. So that's why I decided to put the avocado in the back, where it's less obvious where the shadows are being cast, and the highlights in the avocado aren't really going to throw off anything. So the lesson from today is to always look at where the light source is coming from before you draw something. And keeping this in mind throughout the drawing will help you make sense of where the highlights and shadows should go. I hope this video helps you guys along your artistic journey, and as always, remember to like this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe for new videos every Monday. See you next week!